Welcome back to page 121. Today we're going to jump into the Dungeon Master's Guide and we're going to continue looking at our artifacts and relics. So jumping into here, we see all the details in the artifacts and relics on this page, which tells us some of the stuff if you try to make a hireling, use the artifact to test out its bad powers, how they'll react based on alignment, and how they've been treated by you, etc., etc. But then we get to the artifacts themselves. But today's video is not about the artifacts, pages of them. What today's video is about are the benign powers and the prime powers. Basically, a benign power is something good. You're going to get some kind of good thing out of your artifact. So I'm going to zoom into the table a little bit. These tables are outstanding and they were vexing. The outstanding part of the tables was all the great powers you got. The vexing thing about the tables was alphabetical. There's no numbers. You don't have a percentage to go ahead and roll these on percentage dice to get the powers. Now, I had a couple of friends who went ahead and wrote their own percentage numbers next to the artifacts, the table. I didn't do that because I don't like writing in my books, but that was just me. But I can see where there was a benefit for it. So what we would do is we would simply count out how many there were. So 26, there's about 45, 44 here. And then we would just throw 2 die 20, and we kind of played with it a little bit to try to make it at least a little usable. But I'm not going to look at every minor or major power, benign power, and I'm not going to look at all the prime powers. But I am going to look at a few of them. So your very first one, add a point to your possessor's major attribute. And in our table, of course, this let you go above the max. So if you already had a 19 or an 18 strength rather, and you got that and you were a fighter, your prime attribute is strength, so you go to a 19. We did allow that, and we still do. Now, let me say a word on artifacts. A lot of what this series is going to be about our use of artifacts over the years. Most artifacts in my AD&D campaigns came in the very early days, so we'll just say in the 80s. That was when artifacts tended to be a little bit freer. We were all trying to push the envelope on the system, see what we could get away with, and artifacts were a great way to do that. I had played under BMs who were incredibly free with artifacts, and I'll go into that as I hit the individual artifacts. But for today we're going to look at the powers that made you want the artifacts. So, adding a point to your major attribute. Animate dead 1 figure by touch for 7 times per week. That could be kind of a good power. Let's see. Detect evil good when held in order. Detect invisibility when held in order. Those are 2 hugely powerful things. Can absolutely shape your campaign. Feather fall when grasped and ordered. Find traps 3 times per day. That's pretty good. Fly when held and ordered. That's a great one. No alignment when held and ordered. 1 time per day. That's not so great. Possessors immune to disease, immune to fear, immune to gas of any type. I had a guy argue that he would die. You're immune to gas of any type, therefore you can't breathe, therefore you suffocate. Interesting argument. It was more for laughs than anything else because we just hand-waved and said because magic. But we get down to some of these others. Ultravision when held or worn. Ultravision was poorly defined at best in this book, so that was kind of neat to have. Web once a day, wizard lock 7 times per week, and zombie animation. I'm not sure how that's different from animate dead, but what the heck. That was the other thing we loved about these charts. There's stuff on some of these charts that doesn't really translate to other parts of the book. So we get the monster summoning on the major benign tables, monster summoning 2 or 3, plus 2 to armor class of possessor, or AC 0, whichever is better. That was a tremendous one, a literal game changer for some of the people that got that. You all of a sudden you go to armor class 0 just by having the artifact with you. Cone of Cold, 2 times per day, pretty powerful. Cure blindness by touch, cure disease by touch. Dimension door twice a day. Disintegrate 1 time per day. Fire shield 2 times a day. We let pick if it was the hot or the cold shield when you cast it. Giant strength, determined type, for 2 turns, 2 times a day. So if you got lucky on the giant table and you rolled fire giant or something like that, you would end up having that strength for twice a day. And then coming down here, we regenerate 2 hit points per turn, but not if killed. So if you had that and you had a ring of regen, which I actually had that situation with one player, he was actually regenerating 3 points per turn. The ring would bring him back if he was, quote, dead, unquote, -11 or more, and then he'd heal like crazy. That was a tremendous power. Word of Recall 2 times per day. X-ray vision, or Word of Recall once a day. X-ray vision 2 times a day. X-ray vision is a literal game changer also. If you ever give out the ring of X-ray vision, be very, very careful. You're going to have a lot of your secrets given up just by a guy wearing the ring, or using the artifact in this case, walking around going, oh yeah, I can see through that. Then we go to the prime powers. These first 2 tables, the benign powers. Then we get minor malevolent effects, major malevolent effects, prime powers, and then table 6 is our side effects. We're going to look at those, the non-beneficial tables, in a future video. But for today, we're going to look at just the 3, and this is the last of them. This is the table that made me want artifacts. These are really powerful powers. All of possessors' ability totals permanently raise 2 points each upon pronouncement of a command word, up to an 18 maximum. I never saw that one in use. That was one that I was curious about, and I almost gave out an artifact, but I never actually saw that one in use. All the possessor's ability traits raised to 18 upon pronouncement of command word. And that's permanent. Just everything goes 18 across the board. I actually did see that in one game. Actually, the guy kind of stuck it to himself because he happened to be an elf with a 19 dex. He went ahead and used this power and went from a 19 to an 18, so he actually kind of stuck it to himself a little bit. Bones, exoskeleton, cartilage of opponent turned to jelly 1 time per day. Yes, I actually had a character who had that power. The DMs lived in fear. And then we come down, death spell, power of 110 to 200% effectiveness with respect to number of levels affected once a day. That's tremendously powerful. Gate spell power, 1 time per day. Imprisonment spell power, 1 time per week. Imprisonment's the one that shoots you to the center of the earth in stasis, and you're just stuck. And then continuing down, we had shape change, 2 times a day. I had a player who came in with that power. That was hard to deal with. It was about a 12th level campaign at the time. This, again, was in the early to mid 80s. It was hard to deal with the fact that he could shape change twice a day, 2 times a day, and the shape change runtime is very long. This is the one that always, these are 2 that always got me. Summon Genie or Freet Lord, 8 hit point per die, +2 to hit, +4 damage for 1 day of service, 1 time a week. That is really powerful, and yes, I had a player in one of my games who had that. Super Sleep Spell affects double the number of creatures, plus up to 2 5th or 6th and 1 7th or 8th level creature. That was a big one at our table too, because again, we had a player who had that on an artifact, and we were still only around 5th level. Now I'll explain a little bit. I keep saying we had this on an artifact. That in the early 80s, not only did I run a lot, I played at a club where I ran, and we had a lot of players that would come in and out of different campaigns. Very big groups of people would play D&D in the early days. And what would happen is I would inherit some artifacts and relics from other DMs, and they'd just come into my game. Or maybe it was a character that I had been DMing for a while, and then he came back 2 weeks later with something really powerful. That happened fairly often. And then you'd have the players arguing that they get to keep the power and all that stuff. And it ended up being a bit of a bone of contention for us. Total fire, heat resistance for all creatures within 20 feet of the item. That is tremendous. Talk about stopping a fireball. User can cast combination spells of a spellcaster as follows. A 1st and 2nd level spell, they could cast it simultaneously. 2nd and 3rd together. 3rd and 4th together, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd spells together. That is a tremendous power. I never actually had to deal with that one, but that would be just staggering. Vanish 2 times a week, vision 1 time per day. Vanish 2 times per day, vision 1 time per day, wish 1 time per day. Youth restored to creature touched 1 time per month. I actually had to deal with pretty much all of these. Wish 1 time a day was from a guy that had his character in my campaign, went to another campaign, got this artifact gifted by a different DM, and then came back into my campaign. That caused some problems. We really had to work on that, because again, the campaign was only about 8th level, and all of a sudden I had a guy showing up with a wish a day. I know that wish ages you, etc., but his argument was, and I tended to agree, that because it was off the artifact, it would not age him. This is supposed to be a good power, not a bad power. So it was an interesting time. I still have a few artifacts floating around my campaign. A couple of characters have them. I'll mention them as I go through the artifacts, but mostly I don't give out artifacts much anymore. If I do, it's the end of a long campaign where the players have fought mightily against this evil creature or this dragon or whatever, and then they've gotten something really powerful out of some kind of treasure hoard, and maybe it will be an artifact or a very minor artifact. I will do that once in a while still. So that's it for looking at the good powers of an artifact. The next time we'll look at the evil powers. The good powers, of course, are why you wanted the artifact. The evil powers are why you were nervous about them. And the artifacts and relics always remind me of the deck of many things. Good things and bad things. You really wanted the good things, you really didn't want the bad things, but you had to risk one if you wanted the other. But that's all I've got today on page 121. I want to thank you for your time. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you enjoyed the video. Leave some comments below. Like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Let's keep growing the channel. And take a look at my Patreon. See if you can help me out there. But that's all I've got today on page 121. Thank you for your time. I'll see you next time.